What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of NFT 365. And I'm with Jordache. Jordache, we are back having a conversation. We're gonna talk a little news, talk a little bit about like overall market. It's been a lot of fun having these chats with you. And I know both of us kind of not only got a little busy, but let's face it, the space got a little swirly. Which like at some points you're like, yeah, we probably hit bottom, but like we haven't hit bottom of just chaos, right? So I think we
Right.
have a little bit of chaos conversation. But Jordache, how's everything going in your world?
Man, I can't complain. I think you're 100% right. I feel like February it was kind of a crazy month in February. And
I mean, that's what they get for giving us only 28 days in a month.
right,
Like it,
right.
it, it turns into like 28 days of just chaos.
This chaos. Then March sneaks up and then it's like, oh my gosh, the first quarter is almost already over. So, but no, man, I think I feel like a lot's happened in those 28 days of this past month. And I'm excited to dive into a couple of these topics today because I think we're going to have a good conversation with your listeners out there.
Yeah, and I think just like circling the wagons as a whole, right? Like, Bitcoin NFTs came out, right? The idea we knew Dookie Dash was kind of wrapping up in the gaming space, right? And then we're gonna talk a little bit about that because I think interestingly enough, on like we talk about like onboarding and mass adoption and all these things, but when you think about like attracting the elite of certain like industries and spaces, like that's a really interesting trend. It'll connect to our conversation with Starbucks as well, which they had a most recent announcement. And I know we talked about them a little bit a lot, I guess, last episode, but you've been deeper in there. So I'm excited to kind of pick your brain there a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about, I know, and we're going to talk about, NFTs in a golf course, which I think is pretty cool. We can talk a little bit even about fashion. I was excited to see some of the fashion news. Also, shout out to Violetta, a past guest of the show, sold out her music NFT on
Yeah, Violetta.
on OpenSea, and she did that during literally, OpenSea dropped the bomb on everybody that morning, and her collection was that night. Now, we could all argue as well, like communication needs to go always, and if your marketplace or your brand decides to make like an announcement that's going to put you front and center in every conversation in the industry, you might want to give those like partner projects and people like a heads up. Like, I don't
Right.
know, that felt a little weird, but I mean, I twisted it and said Violetta, they just wanted all that traffic to go to the site to have your panel up across the top because it's interesting. But I'm curious, Jordache, you were more crypto guy than I was pre
Yeah.
NFTs, and one could say Bitcoin was the safe place to hide your crypto if you didn't want to know about NFTs, because you're like, hey, if it's in Bitcoin, I'm gonna have to convert it because there's no NFTs in there.
Yeah.
The idea of like storing within Bitcoin has always been there. Like I remember that conversation when I learned about Bitcoin, but then this like whole ordinals protocol, the kind of nonsense kind of spun a little bit crazy. I think there was a little bit of confusion. All of a sudden, the Bitcoin maxis joined the ETH conversation, which anyone that brings maxis of any sort is really interesting. What was your take on the whole, Bitcoin coming into the fold? And when we have announcement with the biggest unicorn in the space coming out and saying they're going to drop, they're going to do like a micro drop, but yeah,
Micro.
what was your take on Bitcoin NFTs and how this all kind of spun in?
I love it, to be honest with you, man, because I think it just shows how innovative this space can be, right? How somebody can come up with a protocol and he's like, yo, I came up with this. This seems like it's cool. I wonder what the community or the industry is going to think of this. And then 2 months later, it just blows up, right? And you actually saw it in the price of Bitcoin, right? Like I feel like Bitcoin's kind of been in the back of the room during the news cycles for these last few months, right? Yeah, it's dropped ever since it dropped from the 60K high, till it's flowed in the 20s. And I think it was always in the news of like, oh, how low is it going to go? But like there was no positive or no excitement in that space, right? Because
Yeah,
no one was doing,
no
yeah,
merge, no,
no
yeah,
more
like
nothing, right?
well, who was
No one's
building over
building
there?
on top of it, right? Like they do on
Yeah,
Ethereum, right? That's just not what it's used for. So I think when he came out with with this protocol, I think it just kind of injected excitement. And I think those Bitcoin maxi people over there, they're like, holy crap, like we got something we can do with in this world now versus just, mine and hold and all that good stuff. Right. So, for me, I like the innovation that's happening in the space. I think that I think, we came through this initial surge of, this excitement and hyping, these projects. and going over there, we're still like, this is such in the infancy stage. I don't know what direction it's going to go, but what's cool about that is just this one protocol not only changed the game for these people, or for these people, for that side of the fence, the Bitcoin side of the fence. It just think about all the different opportunities it created. Right now, somebody needs to create the wallet that actually can store these ordinals, right?
Yep.
Someone needs to create a marketplace where you can sell and buy and store these things, right? Like, so like there's a lot of this is what's cool thing about innovation. It creates a whole bunch of ripple effect opportunities out of that. So I think, you already know me, like any positive news in this space, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on or what coin you're on, what network you're on, it's good for the whole industry in some form or fashion. So, I think I got excited with it. And then, obviously when Yuga comes in and says, yo, we're going to drop this 300 piece collection for, what was it called, 12 fold or something like that?
Yeah.
That's, it validates it a little bit, right? When you got the biggest player in the space that says, oh my gosh, like, hey, we're going to take advantage of this hype. I'm just curious to see how those are going to get allocated. That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Like, how is that
especially when
work?
you're that big of the unicorn and you're going to come out with a micro collection like that. And,
right.
and
I
like
think
you
it's
said,
an auction. Are they doing an auction? I think is.
Yeah, they're doing an auction. Yeah, they're doing like a random, but like even like how that's going to work, I think is still a little bit, and and there's like the test wallets and the test marketplaces that exist, of course, to prove protocol use. And like the minute that I heard about it, I had actually, funny enough, had Sparrow had already been downloaded, but I'm guessing that's during the Mint 365 ridiculousness. I must have downloaded
one of the
wallet.
35 blockchains you
mentioned. Apparently I was just like downloading random Bitcoin NFT. Well, I thought when I went to install it, I was like, how's that install file? Wait, it's already installed. But there's a lot of nuance is there, but I agree on like the innovation side. I also think it's like, it's like a splash and then kind of like a resplash, right? And like for those that were, we had like the splash of Bitcoin, then we have like the splash of ProofCon almost at the exact same time being like, hey, we're going to cancel the conference. And I mean, my first thought was like, I know that message, that idea had to be, overly scrutinized internally, because the last thing that they wanted to do was come out. Like there was all they knew was like light a fire, like to cancel this big thing that not only had they hyped around, they had stole tickets, they had gated, they had, I mean, of all of the things, right? Even like the way during the oddities drop, right? So much of the oddities drop was about, ProofCon and we will say like, they're having this announcement, before, after our recording of this on, what's happening with, they're gonna have an announcement. I mean, there was rumors of VCon partnership, which I think if they did that, that would be the smartest move they could ever make. But I don't know how much Gary wants to allow that, but I mean, Gary and Kevin go way the hell back. So I mean, that's a possibility. But
it's good to have friends.
But then the fallout also sucks because, like, I know 4 other, let's just say, smaller marketplace NFT events that immediately within 24 hours decided they're going to close up shop. Now, this is happening the same time that NFT Paris has freaking lines around the block. And I don't know. I mean, Jordache, you and I were messaging and like, we got NFT Paris on our roadmap for next year because
100%.
venue looked amazing. The after hours, like I thought like from afar, and like, shout out to Gigi from Crypto Tech Women sending me messages to make me have FOMO that side. But like, isn't that this so funny with like, we get like some momentum and splash in a new Bitcoin world. We get ProofCon canceled. There's like people that like residual fallout. I know like NFT Toronto, NFT Austin, and NFT and like I think it might have been like ETH Experience or something. Like all 3 of them canceled within 24 or like shut their doors. But then of course NFT Paris blew up. Like, what's your take on like that? Like where we're at with this whole? I mean, I love momentum and I love buzz. But I can't believe we're so still. It still feels very like we're too. I feel like we're too much of a piece of paper flying in the wind. Like whichever way the wind blows, we still kind of roll with it a little bit too much, and it's a little frustrating, I think, as a whole.
100%. I think this ties back to, I think your one of your last episodes, your opening about mental health. So people that participate in this space, right? Like you can't get too caught up in this space from that, because there are a lot of wild swings in this space, and it can wreak havoc on your mental health if you get too too caught up in that. But you know, I think me and you are both on that side of, we know how powerful live events are, and how like amazing they are. Now you're 100% right. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We will be in Paris next year because we need to go experience that, right? And you know, even when we were in London, right, at NFT London, like it wasn't the biggest, splashiest event, but gosh dang it, we had a blast. We met amazing people. It was like, and so like, it doesn't need to be an ape fest, right? Like I don't need it to be this whole big extravagant thing, but like when you can bring amazing people together, there's so much positive energy and so much excitement that can build momentum out of that. Collaborations happen, partnerships happen, all that stuff can happen in that you know, in that environment. And you can't replicate that online. You can't replicate that on Spaces. You can't replicate that in a Discord. So, you know, it was disheartening for me to see that. I wasn't going to go to ProofCon, but I know people that already bought tickets that were going to go. And I was excited just for that to happen. But when it got announced that it was canceled, I was like, I think my first response was like, man, this is not good from a macro perspective, because they have so much visibility in this space that, like you said, for them to make that decision, they're like, it had to be pretty bad to make that decision. And you know, on the flip side though, as a business owner, I don't know their financials, I don't know their situation. I was like, that may have been something just to eat the cost on it. If you can't get sponsorships or whatever, to like, yo, we got to put this on for the community. We have to do this for the industry, just to make sure. We may not do it as big, but like, that's where, you know, I don't know. I can't judge them one way or the other, because I don't have all the information, but like it was disheartening to see that. But I think, you know, we still got VCons of the world. We still got the NFT NYCs of the world. We still got, you know, the ones in Miami. And so it's like,
and Ape Fest is still, you know, going strong too, which is
So it's still the live. There has to be live events, right? And I agree though. I think there has to be a because we both go to live events, not in the non-Web3 space, right? Like you're a full-time keynote speaker. I speak on stages. I go to events, you know, from a networking or connecting standpoint. And I think there hasn't been that shift of, this is not just a party versus like, there's actually some business done and value done at these events. And I think there's going to have to be some sort of hybrid, because I feel like people in this Web3 space have like fully like they swung the pendulum all the way that says, we don't want to be like a Web2 conference, which, you know, right or wrong, it is what it is. But like, I don't feel like you can go that far. I still think there has to be some value there, because like, you know, if Proof cancels it because, you know, whatever sponsors or whatever the situation was, those sponsors have to get value out of this thing, right? And the sponsor's not just gonna get value by slapping their name on something or whatever it is. So it's like, that's why I think the space, the live event space is still taking shape on what is that right mix for this Web3 space. But you know, I'm a big proponent of live events, because I just know how magical and how powerful they are to move the industry forward of what we need to do, and getting the right people connected in the same room.
You know, and I'll also say, like, it reminds me of, like, you know, South by Southwest. The first time I had ever went was 2008, and that was just I had been to a lot of industry events, and I was like, what? This is a music festival on steroids. I was like, you know, and then like, I think the next time I went, they had like 3 days of the interactive on the front end. And then the next year it was like 7 days of interactive on the front end, right? Like they kind of figured that out. And I think you're right. I think that, and I even thought, like, I kind of liked the way that, you know, it was like, you know, kind of VCon, NFTLA, Proof, Consensus. A lot of them were lining up like kind of like a tour, but at the same time, when the market's so down, like, who the hell is attending all of these, right? Like, and you know, we're going to see that with NFT and YNC, with, you know, Ape Fest being disconnected from it. It'll be interesting how that kind of falls down. But, you know, in that same vein, live events, physical connections, LinksDAO, right, it made some news. And I will say, like, I think it's in the first week of the podcast. So episode maybe 6, episode 5. I talked a lot about LinksDAO, because there was like, for those that don't remember, November of 2021, which feels like ages ago.
Years, decades.
Yeah, there was like 9 casino NFTs and 9 golf course NFTs. And I remember like trying to like weed through it. And was like, this, like, how do you know what is what? Like, who can buy a casino? Who's making it a metaverse casino? Who's making a metaverse golf course? And so LinksDAO, you know, coming out with like, you know, and I remember, you know, I think LinksDAO, I'm pretty sure, like in their first like month, got pulled from OpenSea and then got put back on OpenSea.
Yep.
Like there's a little bit of like drama on like how the tokens were getting rolled out, right? There's some of those things, but I mean, of all of the ones that like when I hear people talk about like Pizza DAO, there's a couple DAOs where people like throw it out as like this one's still rocking and rolling, acting like a DAO, been a DAO. LinksDAO has been one that's always been kind of thrown out there, and now we're here. They're making some play.
They're making some moves, and I will never claim that I'm a golfer, a legitimate golfer, but I'll get out there and hit that little white ball every once in a while, right?
I'll ruin a good walk for 4 hours. Yes, sure.
Right. And what I love about that, so what's happening in the space? Obviously, if you guys aren't familiar, number one, go back and make sure you go back and listen to that episode that Fanzo did on them. But they raised, I think, a little over $10 million when they did their
something like 10
drop.
million.
Right, and they were smart. They converted that to a stable coin, right? Like some projects we know that refuse to do that, and that definitely caught them. And so their whole purpose with this DAO initially was, hey, we want to buy a golf course. Like that was the initial thing. Now, 14 months later, it looks like it's going to potentially happen, right? And obviously I was going through their Discord the other day and just looking at some of the messages, and of course you can't make everybody happy because people are like, oh, you say you're going to buy the golf course in the US, and I'm like, yo, like y'all see what opportunity they have. So if you're listening to this, if you're not familiar with the game of golf, it was actually formed and started in this country called Scotland.
Yeah, you're going to the home of golf.
the home of golf. And they had the opportunity. It's not closed yet. The DAO voted on it. I think it got approved by 88% approval, and it had the biggest turnout ever on the vote, which was awesome to see participation in that. And they have the opportunity to put a bid on a golf course called the Spey Bay Links course, which is one of 246 links course still in existence in the world, which is pretty dope, right? So you think about it, it's like they're buying a piece of golf history in a sense, right? Or they're trying to buy a piece of golf history in the home of golf, one of the rare links courses in the world. And what's cool about that is if you're part of this DAO, you have the first right to buy a membership to that, right? Which is going to be pretty dope if you're an avid golfer, right? And you already know that's the golf space is it's a very loyal space, right? Like if you're in the golf space and you're a hardcore golfer, an avid golfer, like you want to take advantage of some of these opportunities to play on some of these courses and say that you're part of a DAO that owns the golf course. It's the Web3 country club legitimately that they're building at this point. So, it's going to be exciting to see. I just saw a message right before we started recording in their Discord that says that they, some of the bids on the course have been told that they were not going to be moving forward with that, but LinksDAO was given a positive note that they are still moving forward in the bid. So they should hopefully find out here sooner rather than later if that bid gets accepted, which I think it's going to be, once again, it's a positive for the space. When you can say, yo, we got a DAO that bought a golf course, people are going to be like, yo, what's a DAO? That's what we want, right? We want that exposure to this space. And I think, and we, I want to hear your thoughts on that, but I want to talk about a little bit more of just how LinksDAO set up. And I think they're doing some cool things over there outside of just buying golf courses.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, I mean, I think part of the thing I remember doing the research originally, was, the idea around, if you're going to buy a golf course or buy a casino, whatever it may be, that like it's a long-term play. Like that stuff does not happen overnight, right? In this market, like how does a utility, how do you maintain, audience engagement? And I will say, LinksDAO put out this tweet, which I thought was just it's overlooked. It wasn't popular as it should be, but their first vote was in January of 2022, right? So they minted right in that fall before, which is why I knew it was like right around that first of the episode. And they had 977 votes on their initial vote, January of 2022. And which, I mean, hey, that's impressive, right?
Right.
This vote, 953 unique votes. So they retained 97%. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, I think that's a testament to getting the right people in.
Yep.
Right. Managing some of the expectations. Yes, there are going to be people, some griping, some like, hey, I want to, but I think there's also just a bigger play in the DAO where like there's ownership and your ability to vote based on like, the tokenomics side of it, and, the tokens that you have, but also like there's kind of like a passive role. Right. And I think I feel like this comes up a lot more recently in the podcast, but it wasn't like, if we probably look back at season 1, I don't think we talked about, passive and active NFT holders and like making sure to satisfy both of them. We probably didn't talk about it enough, right? Which is probably a sign that is why the industry overlooked it. But like, I can probably guarantee you that a lot of the people that were LinksDAO holders were either people deep in NFTs that knew they were just going to be here, or people that were like, I love this idea. I'll check back in 2 years and see what the hell they're doing, or I'll just sign up for the vote mechanism so that I know when I have a chance to vote. And I think there's a testament to that, right? Because like, it doesn't mean that you have to be doing things all time, nonstop, all day long, right? Like, and it also means, in some cases, there's a couple other ones like the LinksDAO, and there's like 2 others. I'm thinking like I hold their NFTs, like they're in a wallet that I don't ever really look at, but like for me, that's like one, like if they end up somehow executing on like I think LinksDAO was like a $4.5 million raise, then I'll be good. But like I haven't been in their Discord. I don't even know if I follow them on Twitter. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, but like you said, good for the space. I also just think the idea of like a group of passionate humans for golf owning a golf course. Like, think about all the other things that like we are all passionate about that like none of us really own something of, right? Like you can really change the dynamic. And like, I mean, in the weirdest part, like Live Golf is disrupting the PGA Tour, which was stuck in their ways. How do you also disrupt like legacy? Like you come in with fresh ideas and fresh takeovers, and this could be it's definitely interesting. I hope they get it. I think the 10.4 mil that they raised back in that day, and the fact that they have that many people still active, 953 votes. I mean, kudos to them.
100%. And I know they actually raised even more money, I think, outside of that, just in on the private side of things, just with some of the things that they're doing. But kudos. And I'll tell you right now, what I think, if you're a NFT project holder or a creator, or if you're part of one, like just like looking at what they've done in that last year, a little over a year, 13, 14 months, right? Like they've done a lot during that time. I think they had 24, 26 Web2 partnerships in the golf space. Like, talk about collaboration, which they brought those benefits back to their holders, right? So like they're adding utility by not just their ultimate goal is to buy a golf course. They could have sat back and said, we're going to wait until the time is right. And then you're holding, but they're like, no, we want to, like, they're creating truly a membership that they're going to be a part of. And what's cool about this though, what I really love is, you already know my philosophy on NFTs, right? You make me money, you save me money, or you give me experiences that I don't have before. Right.
Yep.
And I was just looking, like in 2023, I think they have 2, 4, 6 different events coming up where they call them once in a lifetime golf outings, right? Where they're going to top 75 golf courses in the US that you're going to be able to go play golf on, right? If you're an avid golfer and you're going to get to go play at some of these golf clubs that you've never would have had an opportunity to play at, like that's huge value. That's an experience you're never going to forget, right? It's kind of like Festival Pass that we've talked about before, like creating these experiences for people that they never had the opportunity to take advantage of. This is what I believe the value in these NFTs can come into play without actually just having to, be purely speculative or a PFP project. It's like unlock experiences for people that they've never had before. That's going to build loyalty. So like, that's what I want to commend these guys on, of like, they went outside the space and build amazing partnerships because they understood what their audience wants. If you're golfers, you know the brand you want. You go to Top Golf, you play with Callaway Golf Clubs, whatever it may be. Like, go figure out how you can go do a collaboration. Those brands get access to this Web3 space without having any risk. They get recognition in the space, and then it's a win-win all the way around. And then, like I said, these amazing experiences it's such a, like, looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, this is such a no-brainer. And like I said, I think if they can achieve their ultimate goal of buying this golf course, and I know for a fact, like I was looking in their announcements, they're not done with this. Once they're done, if they get this one, they're not done. They are looking to buy some golf courses here in the US as well. So it's like, it's going to be a cool use case, and I think case study for how to run effective NFT/DAO projects in a very effective way. And I think golf is a good industry to focus on. I think you can find other industries similar to golf where there's passionate people and that people are going to be able to take advantage of and use some of this technology that they had access to.
I mean, I have like 7 poker NFTs that have DAO and have big. I would love some. We don't need to buy a casino. I think hosting a poker tournament at the level of like a legit poker tournament would be pretty cool. What would be an industry or space? Like, it's funny. Like, one of the first ones that came to my mind while I actually think about which one.
Yeah.
It sounds so crazy, but I was like, how cool would it be to own a bunch of roller skating rinks that kind of
What?
went out of business and
Oh yeah.
like let's just raise a DAO and let's go buy a bunch of roller skating rinks, turn them into like entertaining centers that like allow kids to be there, but also kind of connect the millennial. Like, I mean, I was like, that would be like, I mean, like from a, not only from a business. I mean, your dog's a fan of roller skating rinks, so
I guess they
I'm
are.
okay with that. But like, that was one that jumped to my mind, just in like a weird, because like, there's a lot of things that like, quote unquote are dying, that we would prefer not to die, like not like golf courses are dying, but I think the roller skating rink would be one. I thought would be really, it's like a cool. Is there one that jumps out of your mind? Like, was there something that you'd be like, man, it'd be cool if we raise funds to buy something, or what, an industry?
Yes. So one, I'm gonna jump on a trend. Pickleball, definitely. I want to
Ah,
definitely pickleball. I think there would be, to own a pickleball team, to own a court, to own, and there's also I can't remember the name. There's one here in a city close to where I'm at, similar to Top Golf. So it's like a Top Golf setup, but for pickleball. So I think that's just looking at trend wise. I think that would be a good one to play, in which you could obviously do pickleball / tennis is one. This is such a random one. I love to paintball. Like I used to love going paintballing,
that came in my head immediately.
and
And
I'm like,
there's
I feel like,
literally the course that I played my very first paintball ever on is 4 miles from my house. It's called Pez Paintball here in Virginia. And I tell you what, this thing, like, oh my God, that would be amazing. Like that.
how awesome would that be, right? Like, dude. So it's funny. Like we'll go, like when we're traveling or whatever. Like I'll see some crazy structure here, like in Texas. I'll see like these oil refineries, whatever. I'm like, that'd be such a fun place to go do paintball wars at that spot. Like I don't know why. It's just a weird thing for me. But I think those would be my two that I would love to explore outside of, still waiting for my Kansas City Chiefs to start the Chiefs style so I can actually go have some Chief experiences, but we'll just throw that one.
Yeah, it's interesting too on if you think about like the DAO and like the reasons and like motivations, right? Because like, part of it is like you have to know how to run these things. We know like
Right.
business side, but I also think there's even like an ability to like, how do you reset the market? Like all you gotta do is create momentum and hype around one or a couple of things, right? And all of a sudden it like pops things back up. I mean,
Yep.
pickleball, for example, like, I mean, holy hell, it went from like, I thought someone was like making fun of another game when they first ever brought it up. And then like within like 6 months, it was like all over my TikTok feed. And then all people in my Facebook were talking about like what things they were buying. Like, and I was like, what the hell? I didn't even, like, hadn't even seen a court. And so like, and I grew up, one of my good friends started, he was the co-founder of a wiffle ball league, and that wiffle ball league took off in the United States. Like I remember like I would just follow him on Facebook. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, yeah, we're standing up these wiffle ball leagues all over. And I would argue like probably COVID, was the downfall of that side, but there could be some interesting ones. I'd be curious, listeners that are if you have ones that pop to top of mind or ones that you're like, man, there should be a DAO to take this over. I think that would be, paintball. We definitely have that one. Paintball would be,
it'd be fun.
That'd be fun.
We need to start the Fanzo paintball league.
Yeah. Or how has pickleball not had NFTs? I know Gary V was talking about something with like, I think the Pandas are going to do a pickleball with him at VCon. So if you own Series 1 or whatever, it's kind of surprising that they don't have a pickleball NFT yet. And if anyone starts it, we don't need a stake, and you just credit it back to us saying it here.
Yeah, we'll just take a little credits in the end screen, but
or just some airdrops in there, and
that's all.
Of course, we'll disclose, right? That's how this works.
But it's funny, like you see how many athletes are invested in that pickleball league, right? There's so many. Like it's just
Tom Brady owns a team. Like I mean, it's across the board, right? I think Shannon Sharp I heard recently was one of the ones that got in on one of the pickleball teams as well. Yeah, I mean, I think the Kelsey brothers were talking about like what they were going to do on the off season at the end of their podcast. And like one of the things was, he was like, I'm going to decide if this pickleball is worth it. And then I'll decide if I want to own a team. And I was like, oh man, I was like, and by the way, like shout out to New Heights and that.
Shout out to New Heights. One of the best podcasts out there outside of this one.
I just ordered some merch from New Heights. I was like, it was like podcasters supporting podcasts. Like, I mean, it's Philly and Kansas City. It's not like they're, but those two brothers just like, and like the fact that like it was long overdue, and we know how like life gets and like you get disconnected. But yeah, for those that don't know, two brothers that, the brother Super Bowl that existed, the Kelsey brothers, whose mom was all over everything Super Bowl. Shout out to a mom getting love. That was cool too. They had a podcast that started this year, and it was kind of like an idea that someone threw at them about the concept. And shout out to Barstool Sports, because they started kind of the momentum around these let's just say more relaxed sports shows, which has turned into I believe the number one sports show in the world, Pat McAfee show, which is I'm beyond addicted. Like I wish I didn't have like a job that like required me to do all these others, because I would just watch 3 hours of Pat McAfee.
Hey Pat, if you're listening, you need to come on. You need to come talk to Fanzo, man.
Oh my God! Oh, he that would be. I tell you what, between Ashton Kutcher's, not Ashton Kutcher. Geez, I went the wrong way. Dax Shepard. I was thinking Punked, and I went Dax Shepard, armchair expert. Group chat news. We had group chat on this podcast, right? So if I had three, and we could get Pat McAfee on there, right? We'll kind of play that role. But I also love that, like, Pat McAfee was recently sharing. I think he did 70 some episodes, the first 70 some episodes, without a sponsor, without like a producer, and like kind of like ad hoc as all hell, right? So like anyone that's out there, like everybody uses the Gary V Wine Library TV, right? Which is still a valid example, but I'm sure there's a lot of those out there. And what's funny, on that same note, someone actually brought something up to me, as a creator, and said, why isn't there really like a DAO style around a podcast or around a video show where you could actually raise funds and have like the narrative of the show, the guests, all of that kind of be voted on and people growing on it, and then like shared revenue? And I was like, that actually seems, we had the coin here, right? We've seen a lot of the projects, with pretty much all the morning shows, Nifty Portal, Rug Radio, DJ Network, they all dropped NFTs. But it would be interesting on like, just something to throw out there as well, right? Because I think we can learn from the LinksDAO kind of model, initiation, right? And like their whole setup. But it's an interesting just kind of thought to throw out there.
No, and I think that ties in, obviously, with Spotify coming out there with the token gating of music right now, but their podcast is right around the corner, right? Like there's no doubt that you're going to be able to have a private podcast that you have to have a specific token to access.
And let's just face it, YouTube announced a CEO that is NFT Web3 friendly. We also podcast, shout out to we were one of the early ones approved for our YouTube channel, which it's because of our podcast that they approved our YouTube channel. Let's be very clear. And so our YouTube now is listed. If you search in the so if you go to YouTube Music app, you can actually search and find our podcast in there, which is super cool, like exposure. And as soon as I saw the Spotify thing and I heard this YouTube CEO announcement, I was like, don't you worry. Like, you're going to be able to buy Mr. Beast's NFT, and you're going to get like the uncut version of that subscription access that you can own, that you're going to be also probably go to the website and get his chocolate, and like, I mean, we're going to see that model. And like, yes, I know decentralized maxis are going to be like, no, YouTube's controlling it. No, Spotify's controlling it. We got to pump the brakes and recognizing decentralized for everything didn't work, won't work, hasn't going to work, not going to work, right? We have to not only change mindset, change approaches, but there are lots of things that are still going to need to be centralized. And I mean, think about how long it took us to go from MP3 players to Napster to streaming music. I mean, it took,
decades,
25 years of, I was in college my freshman year when Napster rolled out, right?
Bro,
so like
Napster, Kaza, bro, come on now. When CD burners came around, come on now.
I was selling Winamp skins out of my dorm room. Oh yeah. $17. You would get 25 songs, which, at the time you get 12 songs if you bought a CD, and you got a custom Winamp skin. I even made the case and printed out like the songs. Like it was legit. Like that was my business.
This is why I know we're kindred spirits, because I may or may not have this. I can neither confirm nor deny that I had a DVD rental business in my dorm room where I was supposedly there were DVDs being burnt with cases, and the covers were printed and all the stuff. It was a legit movie store, from what I've heard. I can neither confirm nor deny that. But
I rumors has it, right? Like that's the
rumor has it.
I believe we're well past the statute of limitations, but just to be very careful, cover our bases there. Right. Funny enough, in the idea of the flip of this, of like discovering new things with AI art, of course, being the one that I've discovered recently. And just while we're recording this, I got like two text messages, and I'm like, what the hell is everybody like popping off? Like, there's not that much going on. Apparently, Binance, CZ tweeted out and said, here's a fun new Binance AI product called Bicasio, where you can turn your creative visions into NFTs with AI inside of the Binance chain. They already have the website up. It's already in beta, and they're limited it to 10,000 mints. And so you can pretty much make a generative art collection inside of the Binance network. And it was just tweeted out like while we're recording this from CZ. I've done zero research on it. I just think, the fact that everyone was messaging me it literally says the article was written at 3:45 p.m. EST, and we are recording this at 5 p.m. So that you don't get much more breaking news on that. But yeah, I don't know. That's funny. I guess maybe it distracts from like the attention that the SEC have, all the regulations. That
look over here, look at the shiny new toy. Don't look over here.
And only they would now announce it and call it Bicasio. Like
Bicasio.
Yeah, that was an interesting curveball that we didn't plan on bringing up here in the conversation. And we can't, the biggest focus conversation around OpenSea and Blur has been everything, right? And it's just been really interesting on like wash trading and all the things that kind of are happening in that neck of the woods. We also know for the most part, there's two main Bored Ape holders that are literally running rampant. One of them might have been a guest on the podcast in season 1, and I'm a big fan of him because he's just like, he will break shit, find a loophole of all things, and it's just a dude that's like, I'm here to make money, and I'm here to. If you tell me these are 13 rules, I'm gonna find 12.5 where there's a loophole, and I'm gonna stick my 77,000 Bored Apes in there. But the other thing that's interesting is I saw some Dune Analytics reports and things that come out recently around like, as much as like there is this idea of like creator royalties and where things are going, there are still the mass majority of people that are even using Blur are still opting in to pay their creator royalties. So interesting, like on just like, what we grab onto versus like what is real data. There's a lot, and I think maybe that's also a caveat. Like, be very careful. You and I haven't talked about this. This will be a fun little conversation to have. We talk about like the biases within NFT projects and the biases within NFT Twitter spaces, right? Like that, I think we're all pretty aware of that, where, you can smell if someone's shilling something. I just want to put this out there. The news media that covers this space, be very aware of like who is influencing them, what they're talking about. There's 2 Instagram accounts that are massive in this space, that their coverage of NFT Paris was, in my opinion, appalling, disappointing, because everywhere else I saw had this like positive, yes, there was the D-Gods dancing party that we don't even have to address, but for the most part, they were actually like sharing the truth. Right. And there was this 2 accounts, but one of them mainly, that just was, and I was like, what? And then I realized that they have an event that their 2 co-founders are hugely involved in, that's in Paris in the fall. Yep. And I was like, oh my, like I immediately was like, you gotta be very careful. Like, I think it's across the board, including podcasters. Like, we just be very hyper aware of like, we often don't know what we don't know. Right. And there are definitely biases and things that are going to be put in there. It's hard to weed through some of this. Like even pre-show, when you and I literally was researching LinksDAO, and there was 4 articles written within the last 24 hours, and 2 of them painted a different story than the other 2. Right. and probably it's because like 2 of them want the industry to succeed. 2 of them are pissed off that they're not involved in the LinksDAO, and they want to be like, so like that is like something that's like, it's even more agitating because we know that's what the big media is already going to pick up on, and they 100%. Already love any little weakness, any little like, thing that they can pick apart. And the fact that like, we have to keep our guard up with like where we're getting our news and just kind of taking things like in that step as well.
Well, 100%. And I think it's obviously in the world that we live in right now, it's so important to understand that everybody, wherever you're gathering information from, more often than not, there's everybody has a motivation or an alternative, not alternative mode. They have a motive behind it of what they're trying to convince or communicate to you, right? So there's always an angle in a sense, right? And I don't want to make like I'm not wearing my tinfoil hat, right? I believe most people have a good in their heart when they're communicating news, but there's
Unless
a
you
book
watch
called
the Murdoch documentary on Netflix,
right,
then
unless
I'll change your opinion.
right, then that's a whole nother thing. But there's a in the business world, there's a book written by Ryan Holiday called Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Yep, that's a good
And
one.
if you haven't read that book yet, like it's enlightening to see how that world works and what happens. And we already know, like there's so much psychology studies done. It's like what gets people to take action. It's fear or anger. Those are the two most emotions. Those are the two biggest emotions that get people to actually to motivate people to do something, right? Or to be stuck in something, which is basically the same thing, right? To stay here and consume stuff. And so a lot of the stuff, a lot of the things that's out there, media, how do they I always say this, I say this at least 4 times a week. Follow the money. How is this business making money? Right? When you understand how they're making money, you understand, oh, it's through ads or it's through what basically the attention or eyeballs. How do I get you to come back? Well, I'm going to basically stoke your emotions to come back and consume more, right? And so it's like you always got to be careful with what that motivation is, or just be aware of it. I'm not going to say be careful, be aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're taking in information, understand that okay, that's why they're probably thinking it this way, and this other side's probably saying it this way, which is fine. Just you need to be aware where you don't get too caught up in that, so you can kind of read it and consume it in a less biased fashion to understand that okay, I'm just taking in information to draw my own conclusion, right? And so that's 100%, because on the mass media side, we are not a friendly group to these people, right? Because it's too easy to tell a story of fear, failure, whatever, with the Ethereum's down, Bitcoin's down 60% or 50% or whatever it may be. Those are stories that are going to sell and grab eyeballs versus success stories. So I 100% agree. You have to be careful with how much you consume, and I always encourage people to consume both sides, consume all sides, consume all, and then draw your own conclusions based off what you feel and what you know, and you can go from there. But yeah, it's I typically look at things from a more positive standpoint. I tend to, just for my own mental health and my own side of things, where I'm cheering, and we talked about this on their podcast, like we got to cheer on anybody, any success in the space, you have to cheer on. It's living from that view of abundance versus scarcity, right? Or lack. And that's a choice of how you decide to, live your life or consume information. But
yeah, I was watching the Christie's auction with the Findenza 2 days ago, whatever.
Yeah.
And my stomach was in knots, and I was like, "Why am I so stressed?" Because I wanted the auction to keep going. And I like this weird feeling of like, "What the hell? Why do I care so much about this?" And Tyler Hobbs, I believe, was the one that ended up, kind of the whole conversation around. But like, I just love seeing like those things succeed, right? In IRL in 2.0. And I know like that also kind of ties into what we were talking about with Dookie Dash. And, for those that aren't familiar, like he might be the number one gamer, if not, one of the most popular gamers on a couple of different, systems, a couple of different, worlds, ended up being kind of getting that, initial key, which also validates the space and the industry. And then he might have sold it for a couple dollars, right? There's
a few dollars.
How cool is that? From 1.6 mil, I believe, is what it sold for.
Yeah, it was 1,000 ETH, so 1.6
with unknown utility and unknown use case. Like, I mean, Yuga is doing what Yuga does, right? They're very good at like keeping things a little bit unknown. But yeah, I mean, the fact they sold it for that's a testament to the game. When people were asking like why people are spending all that time playing the game, why people, I mean, yeah, if you're a gamer or someone that kind of focuses on that and you can double down on and have a chance to win 1.6 million, what other jobs like, I mean,
right.
And if that style of game was something you were good at, like I would have taken off work, I would have put in, because that upside is, there's nothing to shake a fist about that. And it's definitely going to wave a flag to the gamers on like, hey, maybe these NFT space isn't all as bad as kind of what it was painted to at the beginning.
100%. And I think so two things. Number one, like, please tell me a gaming event where you have a chance to win 1.6 mil by yourself. Right. And obviously he didn't know he was going to win that. I think he listed at 3.5 mil or something like that when he ended up winning it or whatever. And he, whatever, dude, you took 100, you took 1,000 ETH in from playing the game. Right. And obviously I know, taking nothing away from his skills, because dude's unbelievable at gaming. And obviously that took hours and hours and hours to build that skill up. But I think what that's going to do, though, I think it proved both sides, right? Number one, from a gamer's perspective, it's like, yo, we can actually make money in this space, probably a little bit more in certain situations than we could actually ever do, because most of gaming events are team events. I feel like, from the esports side of things, and most of that money comes from sponsorships, right? It's that kind of model where you win a tournament, great, but you have sponsors that kind of pay the way as well. The other side, though, is from a Yuga side of things. It's like, yeah, no one's probably going to be able to replicate Yuga's success with this, but if you could start creating these little mini games, dude, this is like a mobile app game, right? Like,
yeah.
You know how many developers out there could develop a game very similar to this in a relatively short amount of time, to create a competition, to generate buzz and get people into your space or into your project. Like, so I think that model, I love what they did, because I think now I would argue the content could have been different,
yes.
But
we could all
leave
argue
that alone. But like, what they did is, I think that model is smart. And I think, like I said, we were talking about this pre-show. We need in our space, we need that friendly bridge to the gaming space, because they are so closely related to the value that this space can provide, that we just got to figure out how to communicate that value and build that trust with them, to have them start crossing that bridge into our world. Because if we can tap into that space, good, spacious, we can have a good influx of people coming into space. And what those guys are used to doing? Spending money on digital collectibles, whether they know it or not. So that's where, and you have your daughters, right, that are playing the Roblox and Fortnite, and I have my little cousins doing, and I'm like, this is the generation, that our kids' generation, they are already integrated into that space. So we got to tap into that gaming space to bring them into our space as well. And so I loved that this guy won it, and he was such a big name that's going to get recognitions, and he sold it for what he did. Like, congratulations to all parties involved, because that dude Adam, who bought it, who knows? I guarantee Yuga's going to make sure he's taken care of, though, no doubt about that, right? Because and here's the thing that I loved about this as well. They did it on chain, and he paid the royalties.
He did pay the royalties. I saw that. That was
right.
That's
a good tip to the hat, right? Like, it's like, yo, like, kudos to you for doing that, right? Like, you didn't have to do that. So,
although I did see someone on their council reply something back to the effect. I think the tweet was deleted afterwards, but something to the effect of, but it might be the only time that this would have to happen on a non-Yuga marketplace. And I was like, someone tipping alpha there, and then all of a sudden the tweet disappeared, which I thought is an interesting piece. And speaking of gaming, you actually were the first one that kind of threw this on my radar. Metamask, who is the king of wallets in this space, and take it or leave it with all the things they have going on. They launched a big SDK, their collaboration access with it was Unity assets, or Unity Gaming, which is a huge gaming thing. What was your? I mean, like we said, we're celebrating. We like to talk about positive things and things that are going. I mean, MetaMask making it easier for gaming connectivity, gaming integration, gaming onboarding, gaming asset buying, selling marketplaces. That's impressive. I didn't see that one coming on my prediction radar.
I'm the same way. I didn't see this collaboration happening, but oh my goodness, when I saw that, I think I put in the chat, this is some exciting news, right? And I wasn't joking, because like, you have the king of the mountain, the king of and what, right or wrong, MetaMask is what they are, right? Like, they are the go-to Ethereum wallet, hot wallet, software wallet right now, right? Ledger and MetaMask are the two, or MetaMask is obviously, or excuse me, Ledger is obviously hardware. But when I see this partnership with Unity, I was like, yo, because if you think about this, like exactly what I just said, a bridge into this gaming space. Now we're removing barriers for creators, developers, game developers, etc., to start being able to integrate this stuff into their game easily, right? That's all an STK is, right? It's going to be able to provide them the resources and the tools to offer that wallet connection very easily. And from a and this goes with with Yuga coming out with other side, and all these metaverse worlds that are being created right now, the ability where you're going to be able to start bringing in your NFT characters or bringing utility from a project into a game. You know who's already proved that model out? Fortnite.
Yep.
You know who's already proved that model out? Call of Duty, right? Like all these games have already proved the model that people will spend money on digital collectibles in there. And now if you can integrate and make it easy to remove the barrier of integrating the Web3 or the blockchain technology or the wallet technology, you removed friction to make this technology adopted. And once again, we know I was reading a couple articles around this. This was about a week or so ago around some of the words that have a negative connotation in the branding space in this, and how we have to get away from this. We've talked about this. What Starbucks does amazing, and some other companies have done amazing of get away from these supercharged words. Once we get away from that, and the technology is not, we don't even know we're using that technology. Yep. That's when we're going to, and this is the first step to gamers being able to use blockchain and Web3 technology without the person playing the game actually knowing they're using that stuff. And that's a path for us to get adoption in this space, in this gaming space, because I'm a huge believer that this is going to be one of the industries that's going to help us catapult to that next level in this Web3 industry. So when I saw this, I was like, cool. Step one, let's get this bad boy going. And you couldn't ask for a better collaboration partnership from a Web3 side of thing between Unity and MetaMask. I'm excited to watch this come to fruition.
Yeah, and for those listening, SDK, software development kit, right? So, and the beauty of it, like the big argument from gamer developers especially, were for them to build on chain was almost a complete rebuild, right? It's like anyone that launches a game on Apple iOS, the reason that Android one takes forever again is because you have to redo the entire app on that ecosystem. And that's kind of how the gaming NFT world, even Solana and some of the things that we had saw, even I know, there was a conversation around Tezos, but like that onboarding of wallet creation, wallet integration into the game, even like the hybrid, I mean, that's a roadblock, and this is going to be a step to fix it. And you mentioned, let's also just, we mentioned Starbucks, and we'll kind of wrap this episode kind of on that conversation around, Starbucks, because like really Starbucks using Nifty Gateway and Polygon for theirs was really their version of like an SDK for a wallet, right? Because there really wasn't a way to onboard people easily from the Starbucks ecosystem, but Nifty Gateway allows that very easily, right? So they partnered with Nifty Gateway, and so like this is like that version for gamers, right? And like the developers to build on chain into wallet, and Starbucks has been, I mean, we've heard it on the podcast. We've had a couple, episodes, and I know, Jordache, you got to listen to, the interview I did with Joseph. We also got to listen to some of the things going on in their Discord. They had a couple announcements. So I thought it'd be good to kind of circle back on, you and I love like the brand marketing onboarding. That is like our bread and butter. You've now had your, all in on the Starbucks since our last conversation where, I was talking about it and you were like, I'm in, but I'm not in yet. What's been your take? What's your thoughts?
Man, I've been in for almost 3.5 weeks now, for almost coming up on 4 weeks now. And oh my goodness, they did not disappoint. Like when you were talking about that onboarding experience, right? And going into the virtual world to their coffee farm in Costa Rica and being able to learn, like, dude, I'll put it like this, and I'm just going to call myself out. I'm not a coffee drinker. I didn't even know the coffee bean was a fruit. I didn't know it was a fruit first. Like I didn't realize that. I
thought really know that. Let's be fair. I also didn't really know that. I'm a coffee drinker, and like my dad is like obsessed with I don't think I even knew that either. So like I remember being like, oh.
Right. I was like, oh, and it's like red and yellowish orange. And I'm like, yo, like this is interesting. Like it looks like a cherry to me or something like that. So I say all that because that whole onboarding experience did its job. It brought me, somebody who had no clue or a little bit of knowledge in the space, and it took me on a journey. And now I know more about coffee and what Starbucks does and how they create and what their brand values are and all the stuff that they want to communicate to me. I was able to experience that in a fun, engaging way. I wasn't just reading this on a blog, on a website. I wasn't just having a little pop-up come up when I signed up or an email in my inbox. They brought me in the journey and got me connected with some of the people on their team members. They call them partners. You know, in the space and I'm talking specifically around their coffee farm in Costa Rica right now. But then number one, like kudos to you guys on the branding. I know and the onboarding experience. And I'm telling you this, and listen to what Joseph was talking about as well on your previous episode. Like, these guys are setting the standard. Like, every loyalty Web2 brand that wants to play in this space, it's like, okay, that is the blueprint and that is the standard that now they are going to be going after. They are the Yugas of the world when it comes to loyalty programs. I'm just going to throw that out there right now because they have killed it in the execution. And what the other thing you said though is their partnership with Nifty Gateway, genius. They would not have had this success if they didn't have that right there. Because and you know who's proved that? Reddit that real quick, right? That you just need to have ability to remove all barriers from anybody having to have knowledge around buying crypto, storing crypto, etc., and make it easy stop trying to change consumers' behaviors up front of how to purchase and buy things, right? And so with Nifty Gateway's partnership, they killed that. So, you know, I haven't been to Starbucks in a while. I used to work out of coffee shops pre-COVID, etc., quite a bit, just because, you know, instead of working from home in the office, I'd go to coffee shops. I stopped for a while. I've been going back a lot more. Why? Because I'm playing this game now, right? Like, I'm legitimately going there. There's a Starbucks. I was telling you before, there's a Starbucks between my house and my son's school. So I drop my son off at school and I have a new routine now. So I stop at Starbucks, grab my tea, and I'm there for 2 to 3 hours and I get some of the best work done of my day because I'm just like, it's a good zone for me to go focus in. So that's allowed me to participate. And now I know more about their brand, and I'm earning rewards. I'm earning these stamps. I'm playing this gamified thing while that's into my, you know, day-to-day or every other day routine now, which has also helped me in my business. So like, it's done its job for me. Like, I know I'm probably a different beast when it comes to this because I'm a nerd with this NFT. My wife came to Starbucks with me today, and I was like, oh yeah, they got this new program, NFT blockchain. She's like, I'm just want to chai tea latte. And I'm like, don't worry about that. We're going to collect these stamps and we're going to have fun. Right. So I'm not trying to sell her on that and educate her on that because she rolls her eyes at me half the time when I'm talking about this. But what I'm saying is their ability to execute has been amazing. And like their journeys, and what I'm going to talk about some of their updates here in a second, but like overall, I've bought more different random drinks at Starbucks than I would typically have bought because I'm just playing the game and trying to gamify this stuff a little bit more. So kudos to Starbucks on this. And if you haven't gotten on their wait list yet, get on their wait list and just experience what they're doing with this space. Whether you're a coffee drinker or not, I think it's a great opportunity. But they've had some exciting updates that we can jump into. But how's you're coming up on 9-10 weeks in the program, and so how's your journey so far?
Well, you know, if I could track what it means to do something consistently in a week, you know, I talk about how hard it was for me to do a podcast every day. All I had to do was buy a coffee once a week for 5 weeks. And for somehow I got my week. I was like, oh, I already bought one this week. I'll go to Starbucks on Monday. And I went on Monday and it like reset to I hadn't gone 5 weeks. And I was like, oh, what? And so I missed a week. So I had to restart. So yesterday, actually, after the recording with Joseph, I actually went to Starbucks and got my 4th stamp. So I have all of the current, you know, missions or things complete. I think I have like 8 days until they're kind of like their next rollout of, you know, news and things with March 9th. But yeah, I mean, I love that it like, you know, it changes a little bit of habits. You know, I when I was, you know, explaining to my daughters that like I need to bring in a cup and to not use, you know, to reuse a cup. But I was like, I didn't know they did that. I was like, I didn't know they did that either. But you know, I got 10 cents off and I'm helping the environment. Like that, you know, that was a use case. And I will say like, that is part of this whole narrative is like changing changing behaviors, exposing us to products and services, right? It's not just like a vanity or a nice to have. And, you know, I did like during that Joe interview, like part of it, like I was thinking about afterwards, you know, that there are most reward mechanisms right now are very much one-to-one. Like I get something for what I purchase, transactional. But if it's a many-to-many relationship where we're all celebrating, like as soon as I got my 4th one, I posted it in the group chat, right? And then you know, like, and actually I got a message from Coach B, who I mentioned on the other interview, and he's like, Fanzo, I just bought a bag of coffee, I got my stamp, and like, you know, like there is something about that. I know we're all drinking the, I would say drinking the Kool-Aid, but we're all drinking the
Drinking
coffee.
the coffee.
So yeah, we're playing that. But I also think like, doing exclusive interviews in the Discord, and I know I had a Twitter space that was going on during last night's one, but you were able to jump in there. And I mean, there is something really cool about a vibrant community around a common kind of passion. And even if the passion is hybrid, right? The passion is like coffee lovers that also love utility of NFTs, right? Like you don't have to love coffee to be in the Starbucks Odyssey, but you have to, you can kind of play on both those fences. Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, I was excited to hear when you were debriefing me on what went down in the Discord that I missed. Yeah, they have some good things coming down the pipe.
Yeah, man. After last night, it got me more excited with this program because obviously it's still in beta. Like we got to remember that. Like they're still rolling this thing out. They're still figuring this out. So Ryan Butts, Butz, he's the VP of loyalty over at Starbucks, and he jumped on Discord chat last night with the community, and it was so awesome to hear him speak around what their plan is for the Odyssey program, which is what Starbucks is calling this program. And, some of the details around their premium stamp drop coming here on March 9th, here in a few days. So, just to share some highlights from this that I kind of took away from this was, well, before I go down that path, one thing you mentioned, fans, that I just want to highlight is most loyalty programs right now are that transactional. You only get things when you buy something, right? You only get things when you spend money on something, which obviously that's the whole kind of point of a loyalty program. But as an entrepreneur, I know as an entrepreneur that brand loyalty is beyond just what I buy. It's when I believe in the values and I understand and we align on those things, or it's when I understand and I'm bought into your mission. We've talked about this on podcasts previously, like Nike. Like, we've been wearing Nikes for decades, right? And that's something that I have an identity. There's an identity with that thing, right? From when I played basketball and all this other stuff. So loyalty happens more than just spending money, right? And that's what this program is doing. What the Odyssey program is doing for us. It's getting us to buy into what Starbucks stands for. It gets us to understand how the product is made, right? Like that's why when you understand it, you have more appreciation for it, right? And so it's like there's all this stuff that's happening. Like you said, the discount on the bringing in your own cup. I didn't know it existed. And I was like, yo, what? Okay. I felt so weird that first time. I was like, I'm like, here?
I was like, I promise this is like what they told me I was supposed to do, but it felt so weird.
Yo, she straight up asked me, she's like, how big is this cup? And I was like, I don't know. She looks on the bottom. She's like, oh, it's 20 ounces. I was like, oh, it's 20 ounces, right? So just once again, changing those behaviors and educating me on their brand, their values, what they stand for, their product, education, all that stuff. It's bringing me more involved into their brand itself, right? So like last night when they were talking about like, we have these journeys, and you were just kind of talking about that, right? You completed all 4 of your journeys that you had access to, and you got those stamps. It's kind of like that reward after the fact. And these journeys, which is cool, is like there's like the evergreen ones, which is one everybody gets access to. Then there's the paid ones, which are going to be this premium stamp that they're going to be dropping here pretty soon. Their first one's going to be dropping here on, like I said, on March 9th. And then they have these seasonal journeys, right? And that's the one that you have access to that some of us that came into the program after us didn't get access to. And so like understanding like what that does from a business standpoint, you have so many different ways to get people engaged all throughout the whole year to get people excited and participating and gamifying the stuff that you're not going to get from just purchasing something. Right. And that's the cool thing about that is what they have at their disposal. I think that's what, listen to what Joe was talking about. I think listen to what Ryan was talking about. Like they have so much opportunity to add experiences that no one's ever been able to have just by going into the store. And that was the whole goal of Ryan was talking about, of what he wanted to, why they wanted to go down this path, is they want to create more experiences for the consumer outside of just going into the store. And so two couple points I want to highlight that he was talking about last night before we kind of dive in a little bit deeper is their goal right now is to get 5 to 10% of their total loyalty program participate in this at some point in time. That is their internal goal, or their goal that they're shooting for, which if you have 27 million people in their, or I think he said they're up to 30 million right now, and they're starting their normal loyalty program. That's still 1.5 to 3 million people participating in this loyalty program that's built on the blockchain, right? And participating in NFTs, right? Like talk about onboarding. And that's what, like, one thing we always got to remember, one of the value props of NFTs for your audience or for your customers is to reward your most loyal customers. It's to give your most loyal customers experiences that the average customers probably doesn't care much about. So like, that's a huge thing to be able to realize. It's like, even Starbucks' level, they're not shooting for 50%, 20%, 30% of people, because they know it's not going to happen at right now. The other thing that was eye-opening for me was when he was talking about how they have support from the top down. Like, he had a meeting with Howard Schultz, and he was like, they were talking about this new premium drop to the stamp, and he was clapping. He was like, yes, let's do it. Like, he's excited. When the CEO like that's excited for a company, like, that's when you know, like, once again, follow the money. They're not investing the amount of resources they have in this technology if they didn't see the value 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the line. They're building foundation for it right now. So like, that was like, from a high level overview of just of the program, that got me so excited for, once again, not just for Starbucks, but for this space, because you know how many freaking Fortune 500 and big companies with big loyalty programs are watching what is happening with Starbucks. And like I've said, we said earlier, we want everybody participating in this space to win, because when they win, everybody wins, because we are still in this early phase of this. So if Starbucks can knock this out the park like they are, I promise you, in 2023, you're going to see some bigger brands coming in with the loyalty programs in this space, purely because of the success that Starbucks is having right now. And I can't, like, dude, like, this drop that's going to happen, bro.
Yep.
Exciting. Because here's the thing. And this is the cool thing about this. We found out the price last night. We found out how much it's going to cost. And if you're not in the NFT world, it might sound like, whoa, you're dropping how much? If you're in the NFT world, you're like, wow, why is that so cheap?
Right. We do have, like, it's kind of like a poker player. Like, I always say, like, poker players, like, oh yeah, I 3-bet pre-flop for $280, and everyone's like, 200. Well, I bring $280 to the casino all the time. I'm like, oh wait, sorry, I have to put this back, like, in context, right? Like, which is like the NFT world, right? Like, we have that
right. So their premium stamp, and we don't know exactly what the benefits of this stuff is going to happen and all this other stuff yet, but it's going to be the first edition. Like, this is going to be this is numero uno. It's $100, so they're going to drop it, and you can't buy it with crypto. You can only buy it with your credit card or debit card, which is amazing, right? Remove that whole barrier. Once again, shout out to Nifty Gateway for making this happen, to be able to do something like this, to allow people to buy this. Now, every member can buy 2, so you can buy up to 2, first come, first serve. But what's cool about this stamp is it's built off the siren, right? If you don't know what that means by siren, it's the mermaid, right? So Starbucks is, I think they said they're on their 5th iteration of their mermaid logo, right? In their logo. What they did, I can't remember how many artists he said they had working on it, but they basically have 6 different layers of this art that they're coming, or 6 different pieces in a sense that make up this art on the stamp. And I think there was tens of thousands of combinations. They end up choosing 2,000. They curated 2,000 of the combinations, and that's what they're selling: 2,000 pieces or stamps, which are quote unquote NFTs. And they're gonna come with some of these Odyssey points. We won't go down that rabbit hole right now, but like, being able to purchase anything of first, this is legitimately the first big loyalty program in the space, let alone the first premium stamp for a program like that. Like, I think they're gonna go pretty damn quick at $200 or $100 a pop, right? So
especially because they have, like, that supply and demand tension of it's still in beta alpha, but some people that were like early had the first stamp, right? So there's like, they've done a good job on that side of this as well.
Well, and it's proof, right? That holiday stamp, that one that you have that I'm not going to be able to get, that first holiday stamp. I saw another one that sold for $1,400 today.
Yeah, I had an offer, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago for $2,100, right? For that.
So, and that you got that for how much that stamp cost you to get?
Nothing.
Right? Nothing. So, like, just having, but that's the first holiday stamp. There's value just built into that, right? Shout out to Drew for the nostalgia side. He's going to give me a hard time on that, right? But it's true with that, right? And so, like, I'm so excited for them to have success with this first premium drop, right?
Yep.
And Ryan alluded to, this is the first of many. Like they're going to unlock different experiences. But what's cool about this is outside of just the stamps that we're collecting, you're still earning points. Now, here's something that was eye-opening for me. Two things really. The first is those points put you in a tier level, right?
Yep.
And then every quarter, whenever they're going to come out with these rewards for those tiers, there's going to be 3 rewards in each of those tiers that you can choose from that to participate in. And and what was cool is Ryan gave us some examples last night. One of my favorite ones was you can actually win a in-person event at one of their roasteries, which I didn't even know there was such thing as a roastery in Chicago, New York, Seattle, for like these tastings and things like that. Once again, experiences that you can have if you have a certain amount of points and you can participate in this. So when you buy one of these stamps, you get a good amount of these points. When you buy that premium stamps, you get a good amount of these points to leave it. Now, here's what's cool about this that's different than most loyalty programs, though. When you use that reward when you have those points and you use that reward, you don't lose those. Like, you're not cashing those points in.
Right.
You keep the points. You stay at that tier.
It's the NFT level, right? It's like the difference between you earn your air miles that when you use them, you lose them, right? Like, or if you don't use them, you lose them, right? Like, that's every other reward to me,
right? So like, that's once again seeing them like seamlessly integrate the value of this technology that they're using without saying the name of the technology, which is what we love to do in this space, is like I get so giddy. And then, like I said, with how Ryan, like, you can just hear his excitement in his voice of how he's explaining this. And he's been in this role for I think 2 years. He came from Alaska Airlines and running their loyalty program. So it's like there are these people have run massive loyalty programs, and when they're this excited about this technology and what it's going to open up to build that loyalty to a whole nother level, like, we should all be so excited hearing about that. And once again, having that success at this level is just going to bring more eyeballs and more people to be aware of what the value of this technology in the space that we live in. So it was super exciting to hear Ryan talk last night. And one of the things you mentioned before as well is that community in that Starbucks Discord. It's this like this hybrid between like these people that love this Web3 side of things and these people that just love coffee. Right. And it's just like that, finding that balance of having, we won't call them the degens of the world, but the people that are just the maxis in this space, and to play nice with the people that are like, I have no idea what this is. I just love Starbucks and I just want to get my rewards. Like, it's cool to see them blend together. It was one of the funnest chats to read during a live Discord call that I've ever experienced last night, and watching people drop their gifts and their jokes around Ryan. It was cool.
And I think, also, just to be clear, Jordache, did Starbucks or Forum 3 or they pay you to promote this?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. I spend money. I'm spending my own money.
Yeah, and I say that because like we're talking about Starbucks a lot in these last couple of weeks, but like part of it is like there hasn't been enough use cases that are doing it right. Right. If you listen to the first 6 months of the podcast, I talked about Playboy Rabbitars pretty damn often because I really loved their onboarding, loved their execution. I saw an announcement yesterday.
See the metaverse?
The metaverse play that I think they're gonna have. I still hold mine. I'm the epitome of every diamond hand, right? If I talked about an NFT in the podcast, 99.9%, I still hold that NFT, which sometimes is a good thing. Sometimes, you don't follow my wallet. But I will also say, like, part of like the drinking the Kool-Aid, right, and the Starbucks excitement is that this is replicatable, but the nuanced elements of like, one of the things we were talking about, like, the right people. Well, for those that don't know, like, Joseph said on the podcast, they had that massive wait list and it was 3 times bigger than they ever expected. But here's the funny thing. Your invite timed out after 3 days. I think that was genius because there are people that are like, oh, I signed up for that because I'm a degen. I don't have the time to go through this onboarding and go through this process. Well, guess what? Those are also the people you don't want in during beta. Exactly. They can sign back up. You can get them back in the back of the waiting list, but like you're almost weeding people. When I opened it up the very first day, I didn't say this before, but like the very first time I opened up Starbucks Odyssey, my first thought was, yep, they're weeding out the people that were like, oh, I just need to get in here and pass through this, because some of them are time-based. There's some quizzes. You have to go through and watch some content. And then there's like 5 weeks of showing up at Starbucks, right? Which apparently, because I can't figure out what Monday through Friday or Monday through, I screw up again, Monday through Sunday and not restarting the week.
Right.
It took me 9 weeks to get the 5-week reward. But like those things are also important for community growth, right? Because
Yes.
you almost kind of allow your product, your ideal customer, right? Which we know, so you almost let them define and weed out, they like self-assign, right? Like in a weirdest of ways,
Yep.
they self opt in. I'll tell you, like when I saw that the Discord event last night had 784 RSVPs, and I was like, for a Discord that has just a couple thousand people in it, very curated, I was like, wow, like that is impressive. I mean, it's why I messaged you about it, because I was like, I'm running a Twitter space at the same time. I'm not able to, can't pull that through, but yeah, I mean, I think this is just we'll continue to kind of share on this journey. If someone's listening, I would love, if there's other projects that you're a part of that you feel have this like same type of experience and they really methodical, like let us know. Like we don't know what we don't know. I mean, we're pretty damn dialed in. We have a pretty great team of people that are brought in. I'm also, participating, in some other, chats and conversations with Alpha Mondays and DJ Network and a couple other things that are out there. But like the beauty of this is like it's the epitome of what we want to see in this space. And hopefully like this space is really good with copy pasta, right?
Yep.
Let's copy pasta Starbucks and stop copy pasting Dookie Dash keys coming out of monkey's buttholes. Like that's the soundbite of the episode, in my opinion.
100%, man. And I think you hit the freaking nail on the head. Like we're just looking for use cases that are executing at a high level, because whether it's like we talked about earlier, LinksDAO, they are executing at an effective level. Starbucks are executing at an effective level. Like we just want, because once you have proof out there that things like this work, then people are like, oh, if they can do it, we can do it, right? Oh, well, what do we learn from that? So it's like, please share with us anybody that's doing something great from how they're leveraging this technology and that's like, I'm waiting for the gaming space.
Yep.
Who's going to be the leader in this for the first big use case in this space, right? So it's like we have no loyalty to these companies that we're talking about right now, but they're the ones that are leading the way on executing this technology in a very seamless way that's moving this whole industry forward. And that's what we want to talk about. And that's what we want to highlight so we can be educated on, and at the same time, hopefully inspire some people that are building and creating right now to figure out what can we take from that to make our project better or to make our experience better. And we can argue, I think we've talked about this before, user experience is not a priority in this space right now because we have a whole bunch of developers leading this space, which is fine. That's how a lot of I mean, you look at some of the early software, which is fine in the tech space, but like at some point you have to realize like that is a huge component for adoption. And so we have to really, that's why there's roles in this tech space of user experience and user interface. Like that is a very well-paid role in this space because it is so important to get people to be comfortable using your tools. And so when somebody does it right, you best believe we're going to highlight that, where you best believe we're going to dive into that until we find somebody doing it even better.
Yep. I love it. And, and shout out, even coming out of NFT Paris, there was some really big fashion news that had come out with some connections to physical products. There was also some news of some really cool metaverse fashion shows that are bridging AR, VR, which you and I talked about a couple of episodes ago that you and I had. So there's some really cool, exciting things. That's kind of why Jordache and I are doing this, kind of episode, hopefully kind of trying to do it every other week or so, to kind of bring in some news, bring in some, pace, but also like I said it on that episode with Joseph, like that's the episode where you should save the link. And when someone's confused about this space, like these are the examples that give people the aha, give people the, oh, it's more than, the thing. And we're going to see that, the gaming examples, the LinksDAO examples. We're also going to see that like in like VCon and VFriends with like the IP that's rolling out. The fact I walked through Macy's and I said like the Toys R Us inside of Macy's. And I was like, hey girls, that's that NFT that daddy shows you. And the girls like ran over and were playing with the plushies. And I'm like, that's wild, right? Like, I mean, to think about that and when Gary said, he's focused on IP that is Disney level of what Mickey Mouse was. Like, I don't know Mickey Mouse 2 years in, if it was like brand affinity connection, you were there when it started. But that's kind of how we're feeling. So Jordache, this is a lot of fun. always enjoy jamming out with you, my friend.
Yes,
Anything else we want to throw in there before we send people on the way?
No, man, I'm looking forward to the next one, man. I'm sure we'll have some fun stuff to talk about, man. This was a good one, man. We love the conversation.
Yeah, as always enjoy. And I will just say I'll wrap on the sense of like, there's some great listeners of the podcast, great community members. I know a lot of Discords are very inactive right now across the NFT space, and I do know this space can get a little lonely, right? So like I will say, like, partially like my selfish reason of saying, hey, I want you to jump out and follow the podcast account and share out the podcast, but I also want like listeners to be able to connect with each other, because this space is a whole lot better when you're in things together with people, right? And if you are in a couple of projects, try to make maybe a little extra effort to be active in that project's Discord and connect with others that are in there, because I have heard through some different messages, and I'm not gonna call anybody out, Katie, that like it can feel like if you step away or you're not like drinking the Kool-Aid of Web3, that it's kind of hard to keep up or hard to maintain. But kind of find some people, right? Share out the podcast. Love to have listeners connect with listeners. I mean, so many of you have been on this journey since episode 1, which is eons ago these days. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. As always, Starbucks isn't a sponsor, but Starbucks will continue to be a theme and a kind of pilot light, because they're doing it right. And I feel like at this point, we went from not really caring about coffee to now caring about coffee, debating, coffee beans being fruit. Who the hell knows what will be learned on this Starbucks Odyssey journey over the next couple of months. So until next time, everybody, make it a great day. Cheers.